Coming up in our newscast tonight, the president met with heads of local governments mainly to discuss job creation and economic revitalization. The participants are expected to come up with their own creative employment projects. New ministers are named today. The first major cabinet reshuffle since President Moon's inauguration also involves vice minister-level officials. U.S. President Donald Trump grants Korean steelmakers relief from Washington's quotas, meaning the third-largest steel exporter to America can ship more than the amount the two sides agreed upon earlier. News Center begins now. It's 8 p.m. here in Korea, coming to you live from our studio in Seoul. This is Arirang News Center. Welcome to our program. I'm Daniel Chan. At the nation's top office, a meeting with the leaders of numerous local governments was held. Discussions centered around ways to boost job creation and revitalizing the economy, with President Moon emphasizing the need for them to formulate their own customized plans and tell the administration what needs to be done, not vice versa. Shin Se-min starts us off with the highlights from that session.
President Moon Jae-in and the heads of 17 provincial and city governments put their heads together on Thursday to come up with ways to churn out more jobs and breathe life into the economy, starting at the local level.
우리는 소속 정당이 다를 수 있고 또 일하는 무대가 다를 수 있지만 대한민국을 함께 발전시켜 나가야 하는 국정의 동반자입니다.
President Moon was firm on the idea that cooperation between central and local governments is crucial.
이제 패러다임 자체를 바꿔야 할 때입니다. 일자리 사업을 지역이 기획하고 주도하고 정부는 평가 지원하는 상향식 또 소통적 방법으로 전환해 나가야 한다는 생각입니다. 일자리 사업 재원을 지자체가 더 많은 재량을 갖고 또 책임 있게 운용할 수 있어야 지역의 특성에 맞는 다양하고 창의적인 사업이 가능할 것입니다.
And although the regions came to the table with different backgrounds in terms of their regional characteristics, they're all planning to pursue the central government's economic plans, which fall under 7 categories. Now, those projects, which will also be backed by the relevant ministries, include inter-Korean business cooperation, improving the lives of the people through better infrastructure, and supporting small and mid-sized businesses. Pinpointing the need to move away from the top-down policymaking process, the president called for a more fruitful bottom-up communication process instead, and proposed holding meetings like this on a regular basis. Though the president seems to be pulling all the stops to live up to his promise of being the jobs president, the people and the administration will be looking for some signs of improvement when the next jobs report comes out in the matter of weeks. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Staying with job creation efforts, the Moon administration drew up a 7-point plan to further strengthen cooperation among central and provincial governments. They are designed with the aim of boosting economic growth and employment opportunities, of course. For details, let's turn to our Kim Ji-yeon.
Under the government's 7-point plan for balanced, innovative growth led by regional development, it wants to raise the competitiveness of traditionally vital industries that are facing challenges. This is to be reflected in the country's 5-year developmental plan for balanced growth and will be announced by the end of this year, including a yearly evaluation of existing innovation-related state projects. The government also says it'll promote inter-Korean business cooperation within the bounds of international sanctions placed on North Korea by setting up special economic zones for job creation. It looks to strengthen its initiative to develop broad inter-Korean economic belts called the New Economic Map to jointly develop the areas of energy and resources, industrial logistics and transportation, as well as environment and tourism. To improve the quality of life in the nation through various infrastructure projects, the government has increased next year's budget to around $7.9 billion, a near $3 billion increase from this year. Such projects are aimed at promoting culture and physical health, local tourism, urban regeneration, and smart farms, and lowering levels of fine dust. The government also vowed to carry out a series of measures, including $6 billion of support for small business owners and the self-employed, who are struggling to adjust to the sharp spikes in the minimum wage. Another goal is to revitalize farming and fishing villages suffering from a rapidly aging society by improving the residents' livelihoods, as well as improving distribution channels for local organic foods. The sixth point in the government's 7-point plan is to promote the social economy sector by creating social value through economic activities based on communities and voluntary institutions, mostly made up of cooperatives, nonprofit associations, and foundations through state funding. The final point of the government's plan is to increase consultative projects by facilitating communication channels among employers and employees to boost the number of quality jobs. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Also, a high-level meeting was held between the top officials from the government, Chung Hwa-dae, as well as ranking lawmakers from the ruling bloc. The three sides agreed to coordinate on all pending issues and hold these sessions more regularly. Kim Min-ji fills us in on what was discussed during the first such gathering since the new ruling party chair took the helm.
The Korean government has vowed to keep close tabs on the country's overheated real estate market and will mull stronger measures against speculation. This was agreed Thursday in a high-level meeting between the ruling Democratic Party of Korea, the government, and the presidential office. In recent weeks, some areas in Seoul saw housing prices rise on news of potential development plans.
The government will step up efforts to thoroughly curb speculative demand, but while protecting real buyers. The government will consider stronger measures against speculation and also take steps to stabilize housing prices.
And with the Chuseok holiday coming up next month, the government will increase financial support for mom-and-pop stores by roughly $5 billion and also take preemptive measures to ensure stable food prices.
We will take measures for people's livelihoods in advance so that people can spend their Chuseok holiday comfortably. We will also work with warm hearts to revitalize the economy, support people's livelihoods, and create new jobs.
The ruling party, for its part, vowed all-out efforts to pass bills that support the government's policy agenda so that the people can actually feel the positive effects. And as opposition support is a must with the ruling party lacking an absolute majority, they agreed to push for the operation of a joint policy consultation body that includes the rival parties and the government by November. The ruling party, which has a new leader, also signaled that it's planning to make its views known to the government when necessary and not just sit and watch.
We're all in the same boat, and we have a responsibility to do our best for the people. I'm happy to be in a position to pass on the voice of the people to the government. Please don't think I'm being disagreeable here. When I was Prime Minister, it was helpful to speak candidly.
In that respect, the three sides agreed to hold high-level meetings like this on a regular basis once every month, on top of the closed-door meetings that take place every week. They say this is to ensure close coordination of the government's policies and projects. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
President Moon went ahead with a major cabinet reshuffle today. New chiefs for defense as well as trade and labor are named. He also replaced some of the vice minister positions. Cha Sang-mi zooms in on the changes made to better realize the government's policy initiatives.
President Moon on Thursday nominated replacements for 5 of his cabinet ministers, namely those for defense, trade, labor, education, and gender equality, in the administration's first reshuffle since the president took office last year.
Two key phrases to describe the cabinet reshuffle. One is turning over a new leaf, and the other is filling. By that, I mean turning over a new leaf as the administration gets a fresh start with the second cabinet, and filling as in trying to help the people feel the reforms achieved by the first cabinet.
The president named General Chung Kyung-do, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, to replace the embattled Defense Minister Song Young-moo, who's stuck in a difficult situation over the mishandling of controversial information regarding the Defense Intelligence Unit. If appointed, he would become the first Air Force general to head the Defense Ministry in over 2 decades. And he would be the second defense minister in a row not to have come from the Army. Tasked with handling the jobs crisis, Lee Jae-gap has been nominated for Labor Minister. He served previously as Vice Minister for Labor in 2012. For Trade Minister, the president tapped Song Yun-mo, the head of the Korea Intellectual Property Office. He also named ruling party lawmaker Yoo Ne for Minister of Education. The current minister had been slammed for causing confusion in the process of revising the country's college entrance procedures. And another ruling party lawmaker for the post of Gender Equality Minister, Jin Sun-mi. All the president's cabinet picks will have to undergo parliamentary confirmation hearings, although their appointments do not require parliamentary approval. The top office also tapped former presidential inspector and lawyer Lee Seok-soo to head the National Intelligence Service's Planning and Coordination Office. The Blue House has also named 3 other ministerial posts as subject to the reshuffle, hinting that Part 2 will be announced in a week or 2. 차상미, Arirang News.
South Korea's top office held a National Security Council meeting this afternoon, chaired by the Presidential Security Advisor Chung Yu-yong. The session focused on Pyongyang's denuclearization progress. Attendees, including the Defense Unification Ministers, checked up on the latest on the regime's efforts to give up its nuclear program and agreed on beefing up layers of communication channels with Washington for cooperation. Standing members of the committee also discussed preparation for the next Inter-Korean summit and touched on ways to carry out the Panmunjom Declaration signed by the 2 leaders. The nation's defense ministry is undecided on whether to conduct Vigilant Ace, a massive joint aerial drill involving hundreds of aircraft from Seoul and Washington. During today's regular press briefing, the ministry's spokesperson, Choi Yeon-soo, responding to a reporter's question, said the windows for both possibilities are open as of now. The exercise usually takes place for about a week near the end of the year. It is held to enhance interoperability between South Korea and the U.S., with some 230 aircraft, including F-22 and F-35 stealth fighters, and tens of thousands of troops participating in combat training. When America's defense chief hinted at the possibility of resuming joint military drills with Seoul, North Korea was probably on the edge as it sees the defensive exercise as a rehearsal for invasion. And now President Trump pointed out there's no need to spend so much on the combined war games. Park Ji-won sheds light on Washington's mixed messages to the regime.
U.S. President Donald Trump tweeted an official White House statement on Wednesday evening local time, saying there's no reason to be spending large amounts of money on the joint South Korea-U.S. war games. The statement continues that Trump believes his relationship with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is a very good and warm one. But it's just Trump can instantly start the joint military exercises again with South Korea and Japan, and if he does, the exercises will be far bigger than ever before. The statement also criticized China for not pressuring the North enough onto the path of denuclearization. The statement came only a day after U.S. Defense Chief James Mattis said Tuesday that the Pentagon had no plans at this time to suspend any more exercises on the Korean Peninsula. The comment was made at a press briefing at the Pentagon, and Mattis added that no decisions have been made on whether large-scale joint military exercises like Ulchi Freedom Guardian and Full Eagle will be conducted next year, and that any decision would be made in consultation with the U.S. State Department. The U.S. Defense Chief also issued a follow-up statement earlier Wednesday that said the Pentagon's military posture has not changed since the Singapore summit, and no decisions have been made over the exercises, leaving room for possible cancellations. Mattis also said only 3 military exercises had been suspended to allow space for a diplomatic approach to negotiations with North Korea. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
When Washington announced plans to slap duties and quotas on steel and aluminum imports, Seoul quickly took steps and became the first nation to be granted a level of exemption from tariffs. And now even some of those quotas are lifted for Korea. Kim Hye-sung delves deeper to find out what this development suggests about Trump's protectionist measures.
President Trump has signed proclamations allowing targeted relief from steel quotas for some countries, including South Korea. The U.S. Commerce Department said Wednesday local time that President Trump, who in March put in place tariffs of 25% on steel and 10% on aluminum, signed proclamations permitting relief from the quotas on steel for Korea and Brazil, and on both steel and aluminum for Argentina. The statement added that companies can apply for exclusions for products when there is insufficient quantity or quality available from American producers, and that if an exclusion is granted, then no tariff would be owed. Korean steelmakers, represented by the vice chairman of the Korea Iron and Steel Association, Lee Min-chul, welcomed the news, saying this means Korea, the third largest steel exporter to the U.S., can ship more than the quota Seoul and Washington had agreed upon. In March, Korea was given a quota of about 2.68 million tons of steel, or 70% of the annual averages shipped to the U.S. between 2015 and 2017, in exchange for an exemption on steel tariffs. The quota took effect in May.
The Trump administration likely made this move because U.S. steelmakers are slowly feeling the pain of rising steel import costs. So it's granted this targeted relief to some of its allies on steel products that America cannot produce or otherwise really needs.
The announcement from the U.S. Commerce Department follows prolonged negotiations between Korean government officials and local steelmakers and their U.S. counterparts about allowing exemptions for some Korean steel products. Which specific products, though, still has to be negotiated. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
At midnight, another BMW car caught fire here in Seoul. This time it was the gasoline-powered 320i, which is not included in the list of 42 diesel models produced between 2011 and 2016 that are being recalled by BMW Korea. With dozens of their products catching fire, the company is being probed by the police, who launched investigations into the possible concealment of defects. 30 officers from Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency started their search of BMW Korea's offices at 9:30 a.m. local time. The police promised to do everything possible to seek out evidence linked to the blazing vehicles. Meanwhile, thousands of BMW owners are taking part in the lawsuit against the German auto giant, requesting compensation worth more than $13,000 per person. Moving on to other stories now, a military attack helicopter crashed as it took off at an army unit in Yongin, Gyeonggi-do province, but the two pilots on board are safe. According to the army, this afternoon, the AH-1S Cobra helicopter fell from a height of about 1 meter as its rotor blades fell off. The pilots were training and they showed no outward signs of injury. The cause of the crash is not yet clear, but the Army has suspended the use of the Cobra model and will launch an investigation into this incident. Is religious belief an acceptable reason for one to be exempt from mandatory military service? The nation's Supreme Court held a hearing in 3 related cases in which the defendants and the prosecution publicly made their case. Choi Si-young helped us listen to both sides of the argument.
Ahead of its ruling, Korea's Supreme Court heard arguments Thursday in the cases of 3 conscientious objectors indicted for refusing to serve in the military on the grounds of their religious beliefs. In 2004, the court ruled that religious beliefs are not a justifiable reason under the Military Service Act. But since then, lower court decisions have all run counter to that judgment. And in June, the Constitutional Court mandated that the National Assembly amend the law to offer alternative service to those objectors. The hearing Thursday focused again on whether religious beliefs are a justifiable reason for not serving. The defense argued that the decision not to enlist is based on an earnest deliberation of one's religious convictions, and that they are not calling for an exemption from civic duty but merely asking that their freedom of conscience be recognized as guaranteed under the Constitution. The prosecutors stressed that a justifiable reason under the law includes only diseases and natural disasters that can be objectively assessed as impediments to military service. They argued that religious beliefs are personal and that it's impossible to objectively examine the existence of religious beliefs because of the possibility of deception by non-believers. With the hearing now over, the Supreme Court will deliberate and issue a ruling. All eyes are on whether the court will upend the 2004 decision and find religious beliefs an acceptable reason for refusing to report for active military duty. Choi Si-young, Arirang News.
Homes, stores, and streets in South Korea were damaged as torrential rain continues, with more than 70 millimeters falling per hour in some parts. Hundreds of buildings have been inundated with flood water. Lee Min-sun gets us up to speed with the developments.
The heavy downpours that continued for a second day on Wednesday dumped over 400 millimeters of rain on parts of the country. The flooding caused by the heavy rainfall damaged homes, stores, and streets. According to the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters, over 1,400 homes and stores were flooded in Seoul and Gyeonggi-do province, while over 140 flood victims had to stay overnight at community centers. The rain also flooded the streets, washing away vehicles. The Safety Ministry said the heavy rain and flood has claimed 2 lives and injured 3 people as of Thursday. The rains have weakened for now, and the heavy rain warnings were lifted early on Thursday for Seoul, northern Gyeonggi-do province, and Gangwon-do province. But more than 40 millimeters of rain per hour, along with thunder and lightning, is forecast for Chungcheong-do and Jeollado provinces from Thursday night until Friday morning. Southern regions are expected to get as much as 150 millimeters of heavy rain. And the weather agency has warned regional authorities to stay alert as more heavy rain is forecast for Friday. Lee Min-sun, Arirang News.
While experiencing one of the hottest summers on record, we're not alarmed that sea temperatures have been staying high for much longer. But according to one research, the nation's southern waters have remained warm for nearly 2 weeks longer in recent years compared to some 3 decades ago. Oh Soo-young takes a closer look into this phenomenon.
South Korea's southern waters have been growing hotter during the summer over the last 3 decades. That's according to a research team at the Korea Institute of Ocean Science and Technology, which found that the number of days from July to September of high sea surface temperatures in Korea's South Sea increased by 3.5 days every 10 years. This correlates with the general rise in the world's atmospheric temperature, hovering around 0.4 to 0.5 degrees Celsius above the long-term annual average this year.
Early in July, we had a very low temperature, but in the middle of the month, the atmospheric heat wave started. So after that, the ocean began to warm and become very hot, even hotter than 30 degrees. So it was an extremely hot temperature compared to the average years.
Based on data from 1982 to 2017, the research team believes the longer period of warm sea temperatures is mainly due to the impact of climate change and also the inflow of waters from the Northwest Pacific. It noted how sea surface temperature levels in the southern waters weren't as high as expected in 1994, when Korea experienced one of its hottest summers on record. Meanwhile, in 2001, sea temperatures peaked when the Northwest Pacific Ocean was relatively warmer, despite lower atmospheric pressure. The research team says Korea's seas are likely to see even more days of hot surface temperatures each year, largely due to the greenhouse effect, but more research is needed to determine and limit the potential damage of the rising sea temperatures. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The two Koreas are looking mighty together as a unified women's basketball squad cruises to the finals after trouncing Taiwan. But looking at the big picture, we are still short of reaching our Asian Games goal of finishing better than second place in the medal race. Seo Bo-bin has the highlights and much more.
In the track cycling, South Korea's Lee Ju-mi won a gold medal in the women's 3,000-meter individual pursuit. This is her second gold at this year's Games, the first one coming from the women's team pursuit on Tuesday. In judo, South Korean An Chang-lim took home silver in the men's under 73kg event. In the final, An lost in extra time to his Japanese opponent Shohei Ono by a waza-ari, a move worth half a point. An had faced Ono 4 times previously at international competitions, but he lost all of those matches too. The unified Korea team has secured a spot in the Asian Games women's basketball final after beating Taiwan by 89-66 on Thursday. Team Korea had lost to Taiwan in the preliminary round, but was more dominant in the crucial semi-final match. South Korea's WNBA player Park Ji-soo showed her presence with 10 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 blocks. Team Korea will face China in the final on Saturday. Over in kayak event, South Korean kayak star Lee Sun-ja won a bronze medal in the women's 500-meter singles tournament on Thursday. Lee Sun-ja is Korea's strongest kayaker with 12 consecutive wins in the national sports tournament between 2002 and 2011. In athletics, Chu Hyun-myung won bronze in the men's 50-kilometer walk event. The South Korean finished in 4 hours, 10 minutes, 21 seconds, overtaking his Japanese rival with just 5 kilometers to go to finish third. It's the second games in a row that South Korea has won a medal in this event. There are still more events lined up later on Thursday, with the women's 10-meter platform diving at 9:15 p.m. and men's 1,500-meter final at 9:35 p.m. 서보빈, 아리랑 뉴스.
Time to turn to Michelle Bach at the Weather Center for the updates you need. Michelle, the heavy rain in Seoul has calmed somewhat.
Yes, Daniel, but tonight heavy precipitation will focus over in Chungcheongdo provinces. Now the heavy rain alerts are back on as there's going to be rain falling at 20 millimeters per hour. And some parts of Chungcheongdo and Jeollado provinces will even see up to 150 millimeters of rain until tomorrow, while it's going to be drizzling over in the capital. And by noon, Seoul will be rain-free with cooler highs compared to Beijing and Tokyo. Your morning commute in Seoul will be cooler at 22 degrees Celsius tomorrow, but it's hot over in Busan and Jeju as well. And the nation's highs will be between 28 and 29 degrees Celsius, and Jeju peaking up to 31 degrees. The central region will stay dry throughout the weekend, but another round of rain awaits us next week. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we could pack into tonight's edition of Arirang News Center. Wherever you may be tuning in from, thanks for staying with us.